The Nationals had a little science experiment last night, as you saw typically your second baseman, Luis Garcia Jr., over at first base. While I like the experiment, it's not going to work out.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And yes, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me on Twitter at RyanClary11. I am your Nationals insider here, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. And later on in today's show, it's a final NL East tilt today, 12:15 first pitch down in Atlanta. Will the Nationals get the win and avoid the sweep against the Braves? They got swept last week at home against the Braves. Will they get swept on the road in Atlanta? Let's discuss that later on in the show today. And in the second segment, the Nationals announced their minor league awards. Who won what, and what was one award that I thought was pretty interesting. We'll have that discussion for you later on in the show today. But September is about science experiments, and the Nationals, they certainly tried one out yesterday with Luis Garcia Jr. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big fan of it. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So last night, as we saw, the Nationals did lose the game, unfortunately, through 3 solo home runs by the Atlanta Braves, back-to-back nights for Ronald Acuna Jr., so that was unfortunate to see. But as we saw, the first lineup came out, and Luis Garcia Jr. was over at first base. I love that. I love that the Nationals are trying something new. To be honest, it probably should have been happening earlier on this season. We all know at this point that Luis Garcia Jr. is way too inconsistent defensively over at second base. And quite frankly, he's also pretty inconsistent offensively speaking as well. But the Nationals, they wanted to try him over at first base. They know that one of their glaring holes, even down in the farm system, really since Ryan Zimmerman retired after 2021, has been that first base position. They have kind of completely abandoned it at this point. And right now, the really only star prospects that you could have might be Ethan Petry down at Low A Fredericksburg, who was your second round pick out of South Carolina this past summer. But really, other than that, it's Yohandy Morales and then really nobody else. So the Nationals, they decided to let's try out Luis Garcia Jr. And I like the experiment overall, but I don't think it's going to work out. Right now, my biggest kind of, what would you say for this? Issue. Let's just go with that for now. My biggest issue with the Nationals is that they do not have a power hitting first baseman. This offseason, they tried to address that with Nathaniel Lowe. Did not work out here for whatever reason. He was not good defensively. He did not really hit for power. And again, just did not work out. He was DFA'd back in August. Clear as day. Move on from him. Other than that, you have not addressed this position at all. You look down in the minors again. It's Yohandy Morales and it's Ethan Petry. Those are your two guys at this point. So the Nationals decided to move over Luis Garcia Jr., and with his inconsistencies as an offensive hitter, this is not going to work. Right now, if you were to stack up Luis Garcia Jr.'s numbers to first baseman compared to second baseman, it'd be a completely different story. Right now, across Major League Baseball, he would have the 20th best OPS at first base amongst qualified players. He has a 689 OPS, and that would be 1 point behind Nathaniel Lowe, who again was just DFA'd just past month against or now going to the Boston Red Sox. And further than that, looking at his home runs, again, the Nationals have not had any power production over at first base. He'd be 22nd in home runs with just 13 on the season amongst qualified first basemen. The big question for me with Luis Garcia Jr. over at first base is how would this work out long-term offensively? In my mind, you could do a lot better. And here's also the flip side of the coin, defensively speaking. We don't know what he is. We don't know if he will be a good first baseman defensively. If he is, then I guess that adds a little bit more value with him over at first base. But I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be a star defensively over at first. I cannot say that confidently. In fact, I would probably lean going the other way defensively with him. He just has these inconsistencies, and really it comes down to mechanics with him. I think Luis Garcia Jr., if he does work out, it's going to be at second base. Or maybe a team out there is going to trade for him and make him like a left fielder, let's say. But I do not think that it will work out over at first base at this point for many different questions here. Looking at his numbers over at second base, by the way, this is kind of just where he stacks up compared to first baseman amongst ranks, and just kind of gives you an idea of the player profile that you want for a first baseman compared to a second baseman. Luis Garcia Jr. has the 13th highest OPS amongst qualified second basemen amongst Major League Baseball. Furthermore than that, as far as his home runs go, he has got the 12th most home runs compared to his stats as a first baseman, of which he is 22nd in home runs. And again, he would rank 20th in OPS amongst qualified hitters. Luis Garcia Jr. is not going to have the bat to hold up offensively over at first base. And let alone, we haven't even discussed the defensive part yet. We have, but I think we all know. Probably not going to work out. So while the Nationals are experimenting with something new here, I think it is interesting. I think it's something that you should be doing, and I'm not mad at them whatsoever. But this is just not going to work. I am not convinced of this down the road. And again, if it were up to me with what I would do with Luis Garcia Jr. this offseason, quite frankly, we discussed it a few days ago on the podcast. If you missed it, go check it out. I would move CJ Abrams over to second base. I would make that move today, in fact. CJ Abrams, while I love him, while he makes some of these crazy web gem plays and you see the development, you see what he can do, he has not been able to put together a consistent defensive season yet. And the errors and the, quite frankly, dumb mistakes at times really cost his team in the long run. So for where the Nationals are today, I'm not going to sit here and say Luis Garcia Jr. is going to be your first baseman of the future. It's a nice experiment, and maybe the Nationals work him all offseason or at first base, and maybe they move Abrams to second, and maybe they sign a shortstop or trade for one or bring someone up. Who knows what the Nationals do at this point? But I'm not willing to sit here today and talk about Luis Garcia Jr., the first baseman all offseason. In fact, what I think is more likely for Garcia is that they move on from him. I think the Nationals could easily shop him moving forward. He's got a couple of years left of control, number one. And number two, he does have a profile that might intrigue some systems out there. A GM easily could say, this guy has some good numbers offensively speaking. He does not strike out. He does chase a lot, which is a real issue with Garcia. But he has a profile who's going to put the ball in play, number one. He will hold steadily defensively over at second base. He's not going to be anything special defensively, but he might be an average to maybe a tick above average at his ceiling there. I could see a GM going out there and saying, we'll trade for Luis Garcia Jr. And quite frankly, I could see the Nationals doing that as well. I could see the Nationals wanting to get pitching in return, maybe add some layers to this farm system and get those waves back, which we saw back in 2010 when you had guys like Harper and Strasburg, and then it was Rendon and Turner, and then it was Soto and Robles. You need those waves of prospects back. I could see the Nationals trying to get back into that and making a big trade of moving off Luis Garcia Jr. This feels like a last-ditch effort, in my opinion, with Garcia. And unfortunately, it's not going to work out, which brings me this question. Why did you not bring up Yohandy Morales? He had, I think, 2 multi-hit games to end the season this past weekend in Rochester. And quite frankly, this guy is ready. He has been ready. He's not going to be called up for this final series in Chicago, but he should have been here. If you wanted to experiment with someone, The experiment should have been your first baseman, who in my opinion is major league ready, should have been making those starts over at first base. If you wanted to see what you had in the future, a meaningless September season, Yohanny Morales would have been your guy. You would have been able to see his bat. And more importantly, you would have been able to see his defense as well. How does he stack up against other defensive first basemen? Is he better than Nathaniel Lowe? Could he be better than Luis Garcia over at first base? My bet would have been yes. And I'm kind of disappointed that the Nationals did not go with that this season because, again, this was about experimenting in the month of September. And unfortunately, the Nationals just did not use the correct one. I'm not going to say they failed this experiment because they're trying something new, but you have someone who is major league ready and you decided not to call him up. In my mind, that makes no sense. So that's kind of where the Nationals stand, and that's what's going to be happening as we move forward here. But next, we've got a couple of minor league awards that the Nationals did give out, but also a couple of roster moves that I want to get on your guys' radar, as a couple of your guys will not be pitching for the duration of the season. And also, we saw a debut last night that we will get into after this. And yes, it is time to tell you about our friends at Rugiet. And what do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence, pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. And that's exactly where Rugiet's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. And Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can get hard and go to the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if you're prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. And if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly to your door. Again, ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know that we sent you. Now, let me tell you about our friends at Gametime, and there is nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it, and that is why I use Gametime, the app that gives you the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you pay. And I love the zone deals that Gametime has. When I'm walking up to Nationals Park right before first pitch, I open up my Gametime app. I see my flash zone deals. I even get to see my views from my seat on my phone, and then just 2 clicks away, I'm there in the stadium with my tickets in hand, ready to watch some Nationals baseball. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And if you haven't done so already, again, look us up over on YouTube, wherever you get your pods. Again, even on YouTube video, just hit that subscriber button. So yesterday, before the Nationals game, the Nationals made a couple of roster moves, and we even saw a debut. First and foremost, MacKenzie Gore will not be making his final start this Sunday. He was put on the injured list with a right ankle impingement. Just kind of tough to see. Did not end the season strong down in Atlanta. Didn't even make it through the 3rd inning there. Really tough scene to see. I think MacKenzie Gore will be fine as far as this goes. Maybe just kind of dinked his ankle a little bit. So unfortunately, MacKenzie Gore, his season will be done with. And next week, we'll provide a little breakdown of MacKenzie Gore in what could be a very big offseason for your Nationals ace. So stay tuned for that on next week's show. But also, they recalled right-handed pitcher Julian Fernandez and Orlando Rebalta. Fernandez made his debut last night, striking out a pair of Atlanta Braves. I thought looked really good. And again, kind of a cool story. He was actually on his way back down to the Dominican Republic after Rochester's season wrapped up there. And then he got the call ride. He got the call up to the major leagues, had to meet them in Atlanta, and then made his Nationals debut last night. So that was a really cool thing to see. But also, you saw Mason Thompson. He is on the 15-day IL, retroactive to September 20th with right bicep tendonitis. At this point with Mason Thompson, a few years ago, I was so wrong about him. I thought he was going to be a stud out of this bullpen. And unfortunately for him, he has not been able to stay healthy at this point. So that's kind of where we stand with Mason Thompson. Even when he is healthy, it has not been a very pretty performance to this date. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk about Mason Thompson this offseason. But the Nationals did give out some of their minor league awards yesterday, and I thought they were pretty interesting here. So first and foremost, let's get to the player of the year and the hitter of the year for your Washington Nationals infielder / outfielder, Philip Glasser. Philip Glasser, amongst two different levels this year in AA and in AAA. He had 12 games up in AAA this season, but he batted .302 with a .793 OPS and also had 7 home runs. He stole 32 bases this season and, quite frankly, had a very well-rounded season for the Washington Nationals down in Harrisburg, then got the call up to AAA Rochester and looked the part as well. So congrats to him. Really awesome to see. But there is one award that I do want to get to real quick that I thought was kind of funny, in my opinion. I'm not going to lie. And that's Seaver King. Seaver King won the Base Runner of the Year award. Again, good for them. Like, you got to find a way to award your first round pick. But if we're just being honest here, the Base Runner of the Year award, Seaver King, I love Seaver King. I love the prospect of Seaver King. I think he could be a tremendous player. But as soon as the Nationals drafted him, my big concern was, okay, you've got this very raw prospect who played 1 year at the Division I level. Outside of that, playing in D2. How good is he going to be? How good and how can the Nationals tap into this skill set here? Unfortunately for Seaver, everything outside of base running, they could not tap into this year. Although I will say this, defensively, he was a stud up the middle there. So that was good to see from Seaver King. But he did take a lot of bases this year. He stole 30 bases and was only caught stealing 4 times this season. And he spent time across 2 different levels, appearing in 45 games with High A Wilmington this year. He was tied 4th with triples in the national system and 5th in hits and 5th in runs. And it was actually tied 7th with total bases down in the minor leagues for the Washington Nationals. But here's my thing with Seaver King. At what point will the Nationals actually develop him? Again, we have had these big time prospects like a Seaver King, who's very toolsy and his ceiling is sky high. Elijah Green. We have not been able to develop Elijah Green yet. Now, I think Seaver King is a more finished product and a more polished product than what we got with Elijah Green coming out of high school, but it still brings up the same questions as him. What will they do with his development? And right now, this season, I'm not going to say that it was a full-on disappointment, but it certainly wasn't something that we're talking about every day. We're not sitting there looking at the AA box score, seeing what he did every single game. He had a fine season overall, I guess. Defensively, he was really good. Offensively, at times, he did get hot, but still, the overwhelming numbers were pretty underwhelming. And I think that, unfortunately, was just kind of the storyline of this season for Seaver King. So good for him to win the Base Runner of the Year award for the Nationals. But right now, for what I want to see, I was not thrilled with his first season. And I'm not going to blame Seaver King. I'm going to blame the Nationals because, again, they have not done well with developing guys with the skill set of a Seaver King type. You also saw Defensive Player of the Year, Christian Vaquero, who is, yes, still down in Low A Fredericksburg, although he did win. And again, he is a stud defensively for the Fred Nats this season. And Christian Vaquero actually looked really good at times offensively. He finished the year really strong for them, so that was good to see from Christian Vaquero. He was once a big-time prospect for the Washington Nationals. Unfortunately, has kind of taken a while to really arrive here. He was kind of flown through the system at first, but has been stuck in low A Fredericksburg since the beginning of 2024. So that's where the Nationals stand. Those are some eye-popping awards for the Washington Nationals minor leaguers. Let me know what you think, and who would you have given some of those awards to? You can let me know down in the YouTube comment section. Just look up Locked On Nationals and hit that subscriber button. But next, let's preview the final NL East game of the season for the Washington Nationals. And guys, it's kind of a sad one because we're trying to avoid the sweep again against the Atlanta Braves. Let's talk about that after this. And yes, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet player props, building a same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. And maybe on tomorrow's Thursday night football game, you will want to have a Trey Benson over on the rushing yards. He's filling in for James Conner. I'm telling you right now, Trey Benson, I've got him on the over. I also got a Trey Benson anytime touchdown scorer prop, so you can play with our friends at FanDuel. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. Again, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Again, go to FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So the Nationals have Andrew Alvarez going up against Bryce Elder of the Atlanta Braves. Andrew Alvarez this season has been really good for the Washington Nationals. He will be making his final start of the season today against the Atlanta Braves, and they'll be trying to avoid the sweep. And luckily enough for the Nationals, I mean, Alvarez, as of recent, has been your Nationals' best starting pitcher. He has been really good at times. He is coming off his worst start of his 4 so far this season against a very good New York Mets team. He gave up 4 earned runs. Although, one thing I do want to point out with Alvarez, because we have seen the long ball fly in Atlanta so far. It is hot down there. It's going to be a day game there in Atlanta. It's going to be another hot day, so the ball will be flying. But he has only allowed 1 home run so far through his first 19 innings pitched. That, in my opinion, is pretty impressive, especially for someone from the left-handed side who, again, he's not blowing you away with 99. He's sitting there low 90s, and that's just kind of where he is. And so far, he's been able to win with it. And the one thing that has actually been really impressive with him is over his last 2 starts, he has only allowed 2 walks. And over his first 2 starts, he walked 5 batters. Andrew Alvarez has been pretty solid here for the Nationals. So this is going to be his final time to really kind of make a push for this being in the rotation next season. If he has a good start today, it's not going to be like, hey, we got to pen this guy in to the rotation next year. Although you will say this, he's going to have an opportunity. He has pitched well enough in my mind to say, why not give him a shot in spring training? If he pitches his way into the Nationals rotation, then so be it. You've got DJ Hurst coming off Tommy John. He'll be in the rotation at some point next year. But still, you're going to have to bridge that gap. Is Andrew Alvarez going to be the guy for them? Maybe you bring back Trevor Williams, or maybe you sign another veteran guy, or maybe you call up someone from the minors, or maybe you have another Brad Lord where they come into play down in spring training. But I've really liked what I have seen from Andrew Alvarez. So what I want to see from him today, I want to see him take command of that zone, number one, not walk a lot of guys there, obviously. But number 2, go deep into the game. I think that a lot of people, when it comes to pitchers, like, we don't really take the training wheels off them. I think right now and today in Atlanta, going up against a divisional rival, this would be the time to really just kind of let Andrew Alvarez go deep into a game, go get that 100 pitch mark there, and quite frankly, save the bullpen. He has not gone north of 87 pitches yet. He has not pitched beyond the 6th inning this season. Seeing him go into the 7th, sign me up for that. He has been around the 81 to 87 pitch mark over his past 4 starts here. That's kind of where he was at down in AAA also all season long. But what I want to see today from Alvarez, I want to see how deep he can go into the game. And let's see if Miguel Cairo will trust him enough and also give this bullpen a break after what we saw yesterday. So, final NL East game of the year. The Nationals try to avoid the sweep. We'll see what the Nationals ultimately decide to do. But until then, I will catch you guys on the flip side. We'll talk on tomorrow's show. Have a good one. Go Nats.